your profiles, right, guys? Like we discussed about the different types of profiles we have available on the big IP and their impact, right? So during last class, I do remember that we covered persistent profile, right? So we used cookie persistence, we used source IP address, we used SSL, right, to perform persistence. And also, I told you guys that hey, we have like one another type of persistence profile, which is also known as universal profile, right, under persistence itself. And that's where I mentioned that it is not possible for us to go for the universal profile because that would require an I rule, right, to be implemented. So, sometimes what happens, like if you are using cookie or maybe source IP address, so entire website will get, like for entire website, your persistence will get enabled. But sometimes you have to have persistence enabled only for a specific content, specific pages. Then only persistence should work. So in that condition, that universal profile will come into the picture, right? So does that make sense to all of you?
Yes.
Okay. So let me go ahead and let me have access to my big IP. सर अपना सर्वर बंद कर दो अब मास्क पहन लो आप नहीं तो मुझे पहनना पड़ेगा फिर ऐसे right guys so what I was saying let's have access to the big IP now right so the IP address of our big IP is 2.246 I believe right it's 192.168.2.246 yep here we go get logged in and yeah perfect box so here you can see now I have my big IP available local traffic if I go to my virtual servers all should be in running state so that's fine and in previous class we discussed about the persistence profile even we can go back to profiles and then persistence profile you can see that we created like test SSL we created test cookie right so even we can use the source IP address, right? So even we can perform persistence based on source IP address. And we saw that for source IP address or for SSL, right? The persistence table was created by the big IP locally, right? It was having like persistent records in its local persistence table, right? But in case of cookie insert mode, Big IP never ever had any information locally in its persistence table, right? Because the cookie was provided to the end user, to the end customer, right? To the end user machine, and end user machine was storing that cookie in its browser memory, right? And thereafter, if end user was making another request, right, for the same web page, then there was no need uh, to perform the load balancing again. And the end user was accessing the content from the same server as the end user accessed that content before, right? So we have covered all that stuff, right? So if you guys, if any one of you having any question around persistence profile, be it is using cookies or it's using the source IP address or it's with using uh, SSL, right? Like we used SSL as well, right? So if you have any questions around that, please go ahead and ask your questions. Let me show you. We created a persistence profile for source IP address as well. Now you can see the entire list of persistence profile. You remember that we created test persistence profile, test cookie profile, and then test SSL profile. So we covered all these persistence profile during our previous session. So today, if you have any questions around that, please go ahead and ask your questions. You know very well that why do we use persistence profile just to persist or just for stickiness of the connection, right? Like end user tried to access something onto your web server. So next time, if the same end user is trying to hit your web server, then it should, the end user should have access, from the same server, from the same pool member, right? So your cookie If I talk about the cookie persistence, cookie itself maintains an information around the pool and pool member, that which pool was used for this end user and which pool member was actually used, right? So next time, whenever end user will hit another request or will send another request, right? So this time, your big IP doesn't need to perform the load balancing algorithm, because big IP can easily read that cookie, and based on that information provided by the cookie, it can redirect that request to the same pool member. Does that make sense to all of you? We also did it using source IP address, so there should not be any issues around the persistence profile. Thereafter, now today we are supposed to start talking about some other types of profile as well. So let's start with the protocol profile today, right? So when it comes to the protocol profiles, protocol profile, protocol profile will cover your like TCP profile, UDP profile. So mainly you will be playing around TCP and UDP profiles when it comes to the protocol profile. So let's go back to the profiles, and then you can look at here that we have one another type of profile called protocol profile. So using protocol profile, you can play around TCP and UDP profile. Like you can play around TCP options or maybe UDP options which are available under UDP profile. And I do remember that even we had a small discussion around the TCP profile, and today again we're gonna create the TCP profile, and thereafter we will start using that. Okay. So my lab is ready. Now let me turn on my Windows PC machine as well, right? So here we go. So this is my test machine. I have enabled, I have turned on the test machine, and thereafter, let's go back to the protocol profile. But other than TCP and UDP, you can also see fast L4, fast HTTP. Those profiles are also there, right? Other than TCP and UDP. So now you could have, few questions around that. Where are we going to use fast L4, or where are we going to use fast HTTP? So of course, we should know about that, right? We should have some information around fast L4, fast HTTP. So basically, these profiles will be used by by some various types of virtual servers, right? So that depends that which type of virtual server you are creating, and based on that, it will pick this protocol profile. Okay. So now, if I go back to my virtual servers, right, we will see it here. And if I create a new virtual server now, look at this. If I create a new virtual server, right? So if you click on creating a new virtual server, it should display you each and everything, right? Just a moment. Wait for a moment. Wait for some time. हेलो, उसको सुगम को कॉल कर देना है ना, अगर वो ले आए तो, ठीक है? किसके लिए फोन किया? नहीं तो मैं तो लेट तक ही आऊंगा ना, 2:30 बजे तक, 3 बजे तक। ना 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 ना, दोनों क्लास में। हाँ ठीक है। I'm sorry guys. So the point is that first you have to assign the name, and then type of virtual servers, types of virtual server. Guys, look at this. This is really important for us to understand, right? We have covered standard virtual server, and you know very well that our big IP will work as a full proxy, right? When we select the standard type of virtual server, because mainly standard type of virtual server will be used for kind of load sharing, right? Load balancing, right? And we saw that forwarding IP was not something which can utilize for the purpose of load sharing, because there is no way to attach your pool to this, to this virtual server at this moment. So this virtual server was utilized by us to make this big IP, right? To change the behavior of this big IP similar to a router, right? So we wanted to utilize our big IP as a router, and that's where we changed its virtual server type as forwarding IP. Now, in similar way, you can also have like performance HTTP. So you know very well, like in most cases, you would have the websites deployed in your network, right? And in most cases, you would have web servers deployed behind big IP, isn't it? Like in most cases, web servers will be deployed behind big IP. Like in most cases, big IP will be doing load sharing for websites, for web servers. So if you know very well that, okay, you have, like you are going to deploy some web services using the virtual server, go ahead and create kind of performance HTTP based or performance HTTP type of virtual server. Performance HTTP type of virtual server. So if you are creating performance HTTP type of virtual server, in that case, in that particular case, the performance of HTTP will definitely get uplifted. Will definitely get uplifted, right? I mean, like the performance for the end user while accessing a web page will definitely get improved just because of it is using protocol profile as fast HTTP. You can see that the client profile that it is using now is fast HTTP. So if you remember, we discussed about these TCP profiles. Remember protocol profile. So under protocol profiles, it was TCP, it was UDP, it was fast HTTP, and it was fast L4 as well. So when you select this type of virtual server, it will start using this type of protocol profile automatically. So if you select now performance layer 4, then you would see that it will start using fast L4 type of protocol profile. Does that make sense to all of you? Like while changing the virtual server type, it is changing the profile type automatically for the client, right? And one more thing I would like to discuss here is that if you look at um, performance layer 4 type of virtual server, is there any way to define the protocol profile for the servers? No, no, there is no way. Like there is no option to set your server, to set your protocol profile for the server side. Because the problem is, the behavior of Big IP will get changed, will get modified as you change its protocol profile or its virtual server type. So today I will also discuss around, I'll have a discussion around the different types of virtual servers you have and the differences between them, right? And thereafter you will be able to understand that, oh, okay, this is the fast L4 or that's the meaning of fast L4 client profile, okay, or protocol profile. So now I'm going to have a discussion around different types of virtual servers that you have available as of today, right? So like performance layer 4 is there, forwarding IP is there, and so on, right? So let's have discussion around that. So when I talk about those PPTs doesn't have that explanation, right? PPTs doesn't have that kind of explanation that how or what are the differences between these different types of virtual servers, right? Because our PPTs that we are using, right, for our training basically covers only two different types of virtual servers. One is called as standard, and second one that they covered was IP forwarding type of virtual server, right? So just get me one sec, please, right? Let me open up some material over here, and thereafter I'll take you through that, through the differences that we have between the different virtual server types, okay? Um, just a moment. I'll share my screen again. Give me a moment, please. All right, here we go. Mhm. Let me go ahead, share my screen. Share the screen. You must be able to see my screen now. Is it? So now you have different types of virtual servers available over here, right? Like kind of a standard virtual server, the performance layer 4 virtual server, the performance HTTP virtual server, the forwarding layer 2 virtual server, the forwarding IP virtual server, and reject virtual server. And this is now, this is what we are going to discuss now, that how basically TCP behaves with different types of virtual server. Because when you select different types of virtual server, then different type of protocol profile gets attached to it automatically, right? Different type of protocol profile gets attached to it automatically. So that's where we are going to discuss discuss about it. So if I go back, like different types of virtual servers available over here. So you can start with this standard type of virtual server. Like standard virtual server directs client traffic to a load balancing pool and is most basic type of virtual server. It is a general purpose virtual server that does everything, right? That does everything. You get my point? Like if you talk about the other virtual servers, those virtual servers are basically intent based virtual servers, right? They will fulfill some kind of intent, right? So forwarding to is kind of when virtual server shares the same IP address as a node in an associated virtual local area network, right? So forwarding to virtual server is used in conjunction with a VLAN group for. Again, you can just read about that in more details. In this way, right? Same goes with performance HTTP and like that. So we will be discussing around that, right? But also we have to discuss around the connection setup, the TCP connection setup, while using different types of virtual servers. So if you talk about the standard virtual server, so I discussed it with you that how does it work, right? So when you create a standard type of virtual server, you have to put like type, the source IP address, destination, name, service port, virtual address, state, protocol, and these all are the, these all are the different options that you may configure within your virtual server, right? So these all are those options which are available over here, right? But I'm not going to discuss about that because that's something which we already which we have already covered. Now look at this standard virtual server. You can see that there are two different connection tables, right? This is your standard virtual server. Look at this and try to understand it in more details, right? As much as you can. So this is your big IP LTM, this is your client machine, and this is your pool member, right? Of course, pool member is like kind of your physical server, right? Because you will be adding your physical servers as a node on your big IP. Thereafter, you will be creating pools, and then pools will have pool members, isn't it? Right. So now you have to, three different entities over here. One is client machine, other one is big IP, and then pool member. So in kind of, if you are using the standard virtual server with normal TCP profile, right? In that condition, you can see that client is making three-way handshaking or is performing three-way handshaking with big IP first. Thereafter, LTM is gonna choose the pool member based on the pool attached to that virtual server, which you are hitting here, right? And thereafter, it will perform three-way handshake with that specific pool member. Thereafter, if client is sending any request, the big IP will send it over to the pool member, and then pool member will respond back. Okay, so that's how the standard type of virtual server will work with the TCP profile only. However, if there is an HTTP profile attached to your standard virtual server, thereafter, there will be a little difference in the behavior of the connection setup by the virtual server. Okay, there will be a little change in the behavior, right? So currently only TCP profile is attached, which is by default attached to your virtual server. Now, if you scroll down, there is a condition where HTTP profile, layer 7 profile is also attached with your virtual server. So this time, the behavior of this virtual server, and it is also a general, it's a type of a standard virtual server, right? Still, we are using a standard type of virtual server. So since you have a client, then you have big IP, and then you have a pool member once again, right? But this time you have a once again you have what? You have a client, the end user client, and then you have big IP, then you have a pool member, right? So three-way handshaking is done, but once three-way handshaking is done, previously we saw that as soon as three-way handshake got completed, it selected the pool member, it performed load balancing and selected the pool member and then initiated three-way handshake with that pool member. Thereafter, it received, I mean, it never waited for any request to be received from the client before establishing the three-way handshaking with the pool member, right? But in this condition where you have applied HTTP profile with your virtual server along with the TCP profile, of course, TCP profile, you know, HTTP profile is mandatory for the TCP, right? Hey guys, somebody is keeping, you know, somebody is calling me anytime. Get me 2 seconds, please. Hello? हेलो हाँ जी हाँ मैं ठीक हूँ मैं हाँ वो ठीक हो हाँ मैं अभी ऑफिस हूँ बुआ हाँ मैं करूँगा फिर यहाँ से ऑफिस से फ्री होकर ठीक है बुआ okay guys okay all right so again we had like 3 different entities. So previously, I mean, the major difference here is between I mean, we have kind of same virtual server, right? But there is a little difference in the behavior of the virtual server as you attach layer 7 profile. I mean, layer 7 type of profile, which is like kind of HTTP, right? So client is there, then big IP is there, then pool member is there. So client is, you know, is just negotiating with the big IP, and then thereafter, you know, big IP is waiting for the HTTP get message to be received. Earlier, we never waited for HTTP get message before doing the load balancing. That's the major difference here, right? Other than that, everything is fine. So this time, when you have attached HTTP profile with your big IP LTM, right? So you are waiting for HTTP get message to be received. Then acknowledgement will be sent back to the client, and thereafter we can see that now, like once we have received this get message, thereafter we are performing load balancing algorithm. We are selecting pool member, and then we are we are performing three-way handshake with that specific pool member which was selected, and thereafter that get message will be forwarded. The get message will be forwarded to this pool member. So is that clear to all of you? Does that make sense to all of you?
Yes.
Great. All right. So that's the only difference when you are selecting, you know, when you are attaching layer 7 profile to your virtual server. All right, guys. So, okay. Let me scroll down. So then we have performance layer 4 type of virtual server over here, right? We have like performance layer 4 virtual server. This is what I was talking about, right? Even you can select layer 4 virtual server type, right? The performance layer 4 type of virtual server. You can create that, right? But remember that it will be able to see your data at layer 4 only. At layer 4 only. However, like there are some changes, right? But in beginning, like in version 11, if you were using performance layer 4 virtual server, it was not possible for us to enable HTTP profile with that, right? So this performance layer 4 virtual server, like when you create this type of virtual server, it will have the protocol profile type performance layer 4 only. You get my point? Fast L4 profile will get attached to this type of virtual server automatically. You can see that, like platforms such as, like you can see here, let me show you. Platforms such as Viprion and 8900 do not contain PV ASIC chip, and all fast L4 connection processing is done in the traffic management. Like you do not have any separate chip onto those platforms, you know, for fast L4. And whether your platform contains the PVA chip, refer to the appropriate big IP platform guide for information about how to locate F5 product manual. I mean, this is what they are trying to make you understand, that basically we do not have this PVA ASIC chip available onto Viprion and 8900 series of big IP, right? Those are available onto some other on some other platforms, right? So point is, like when you talk about the performance layer 4 type of virtual server, it uses fast L4 profile. This is what I wanted to make you understand. Like the profile is getting changed, right? If you are creating fast L4 virtual server, the protocol profile is also getting changed in backend automatically, right? So fast L4 profile will get attached to it. So depending on the configuration, the virtual server uses, it will use PVA ASIC chip with the PVA acceleration mode defined as one of the following: full, assisted, or none, right? Irrespective of the PVA acceleration mode used in the profile, the performance layer 4 virtual server process connection on packet by packet basis. So you see that now it is not working kind of full proxy. You know why? Because now it has started to process your data packet by packet, like packet by packet, not by per connection. Try to understand that, right? So you cannot call it now full proxy. So you can see if you have performance layer 4 virtual server, right? So fast L4 profile will get attached to it automatically, right? So it's the performance will be like, I mean, the behavior will be packet to packet by packet. TCP behavior operates as follow. Like if the SYN request was received by big IP, right? Big IP is going to perform the load balancing based on the SYN message, based on received SYN message, and then same SYN message will be forwarded to the specific pool member. So there are no separate two. There are no two different separate, different connection table. We have only one connection table. You can see this time, right? SYN came from the client, perform load sharing, right? Load balancing algorithm. Select your pool member and then redirect that SYN message to that specific pool member. Jagdish, does that make sense to all of? I mean, to you? Jagdish, you are on mute. You are speaking
Yes,
on
yes.
mute. Yeah.
Yeah.
So SYN packet came from the client. Big IP received that. Now it will perform load balancing using pool, and then it will redirect that to that specific node. You can see LTM evaluate the packet for processing, looking only at the destination IP address, and will forward it based on that. So SYN was sent to the node, and SYN ACK came back, and same SYN ACK was given back to the client. Then acknowledgement came back from the client, and then same acknowledgement was given to the node over here, right? So you can see the fast L4. Why are we calling it fast L4? Because earlier you were creating two separate connections with each entity. Like Big IP was creating separate connection table with client and separate connection table with the real server, like pool member, right? But this time it's not doing that, and that's why they have improved the performance, right, of your box at layer 4. That's why it is also known as fast L4. Any questions, sir, around this?
No, sir. No.
Great. So that's why, fast L4 profile is, like we cannot attach like kind of server profile to it. The client profile is sufficient to be attached to this virtual server. That's why we never had any, server type of profile when it comes to the protocol profile. Okay. However, if you go for the standard type of virtual server, you can have separate client protocol profile and server protocol profile, isn't it? But in this type of virtual server, it is not possible. Okay. Now, if you scroll down, performance HTTP is also, like kind of same, but yes, this time it is, it is maintaining two separate connection tables. It's not like kind of a performance layer 4, right? I mean, it's a little different than performance layer 4 because it is maintaining separate connection table with the client machine and with the pool members. However, the biggest advantage of performance HTTP virtual server is that we can reuse the ideal server side flows or ideal server side connections. Let's say you had a server side connection and that was in ideal state. Now a new client came in, right? So you already had this ideal state connection with your pool member, right? A new client came in, we performed the three-way handshake with that client, and thereafter we received the get message. Now we're gonna send it to that pool member for which we already have a TCP connection. Like I'm not going to build another TCP connection if I am already having a TCP connection in ideal state. However, there is a condition. If there is no TCP connection exists between big IP and the pool member, you get my point? If there is no connection exists between the big IP and the pool member, right? Then what's gonna next? What's gonna happen next? Of course, it will have to perform like load sharing, right? And it will have to build, like in that condition, it will become kind of a standard virtual server, right? But in case if you already have some sort of, already have some established connection between big IP and the pool member, right? With the selected pool member, right? And that is already in ideal state, like nobody is using that connection, then it can go ahead and it can utilize that connection, right? So, I mean, it's improving the performance, right? So that's how it is improving the performance. So this is when you have a ideal server side flow, when you have a ideal server side connection, right? So this connection was already in ideal state, right? If there is no, if there is no ideal connection, then it will look for the pool member and then it will perform three-way handshake, then it will be a normal process. Then it will follow a normal process, isn't it? So that's how your performance HTTP will work. So even you can try to read it. I'm going to share this link with all of you. In fact, I have already shared it. I remember that I shared this link before, and I told you at the time that please go through these different types of virtual servers, and in future I'll go through it. But again, I'll share this link, with all of you. So what is it saying? Virtual server HTTP virtual server type uses fast HTTP profile, and this performance HTTP virtual server with fast HTTP profile is designed to speed up the certain types of HTTP connection and reduce the number of connection open to the backend with the real servers. It is reducing them. You know how? Because we are reusing the ideal connections, right? That's why we are making that statement. So this is accomplished by combining feature from the TCP, HTTP, and one connect profile. So we are combining the features within this fast HTTP profile. We are combining the features from the TCP profile, from HTTP profile, and from one connect profile. In fact, in future, I will teach you the one connect profile as well. But this fast HTTP profile contains the features from, combinedly from TCP profile, HTTP profile, as well as one connect profile. And, combinedly it works into a single profile, right? That is optimized for network performance. The performance HTTP virtual server processes connection on a packet by packet basis and buffers only enough data to parse packet headers, right? And the performance HTTP virtual server TCP behave here operates as follow. मैंने आपको बताया कि किस तरीके से ये इसको utilize कर सकता है, right? So that's how it works. So that's how the behavior of virtual server will get changed if you are using this type of virtual server. So it has been observed until now that if we are using different types of virtual servers, right? If we are utilizing different types of virtual server, then the behavior of the virtual server is also getting changed accordingly. And also the type of protocol profile it is utilizing is also getting changed accordingly. Like in standard, it was using only TCP, right? In performance layer 4, it was using fast L4, right? In performance HTTP, it is using fast HTTP profile, and that is also another type of protocol profile. Now, let me go back to the protocol profiles once again, right? Arjun. Yeah, go ahead. No, it's not possible. It's not possible. And there is no permanent connection between big IP and the pool members, right? There is no permanent connection for that. Because big IP will always initiate the connection with the real pool member only when it gets the request from the client. If it doesn't get the request from the client, it will not open up the connection with the server. But yeah, you are right. In case if there is an ideal connection, right, already in place between big IP and the real pool member or the real server, yeah, I mean, it's not possible to have the ideal connections all the time. And that's why there are two separate conditions. One condition is where you have the ideal connection, and the other condition where you don't have ideal server side flow. Okay? Exactly. It will have to perform then load sharing, and then it will have to perform three-way handshake with that selected pool member, right? So forwarding virtual server is again same, like it's working as a router. SYN came, forward it. SYNACK came, forward it. ACK came, forward it. So it's like packet by packet process, right? And this is what we have done. Reject is just to reject the incoming request. Like for example, if you want that, hey, if somebody is trying to hit on 6.6.6, connection should be rejected. All right, go ahead and create the reject virtual server for that. Okay. So the reject virtual server type causes big IP system to immediately reject any traffic destined for that virtual server IP, right? So in case if you know that, okay, entire pool is down now, so you can create kind of reject virtual server, right? So all of the requests, all of the traffic which is being hit to this virtual server will be rejected by this virtual server, right? So we have this reject type of virtual server. Thereafter, let's go back to our big IP portal, right? So let's log in again. My God, my system is not that much slow. Cursor is moving quite slowly. I don't know why. Let me just close this pen. Sometimes, it happens due to. Oh my God. Hilarious. Wait, guys. Wait, guys. I'm stopping my sharing, right? I'll have to see why my laptop is quite slow. Because cursor is like moving. Or maybe it was just because of the Zoom, right? I'll have to see that. Just a moment, please. I don't know. Wait, guys. Still, even after stopping my screen sharing, still the performance is same. Wait, guys. %75. Okay. Okay. Looks good now. All right. Let me share my screen. So it all looks good now. All right. So let me log in again. And let's have a discuss around the different types of protocol profiles, right? So let me just take you through the profiles and then protocol profile. Let me start with the fast L4, right? So if you talk about the fast L4, look at this. Fast L4 is by default there. However, we can also create a type of fast L4 profile. We can customize it. but these are the only options that you can configure. So there is nothing like One Connect, nothing like HTTP, no, right? So you cannot, I mean, these are the only options which you can configure within this fast L4 profile. Now, if I go back and then if I look at the fast HTTP, then it will be a combination of TCP, HTTP, and One Connect profile. And you can see that these are settings from TCP, these are the settings from One Connect, and these are the settings from HTTP. Make sense, sir? So this is for fast HTTP profile. So as I said before, it is a combination of TCP, HTTP, and One Connect, and this is what we have proved over here, right? But ideally, like, you will not go for it, right? In most cases, you will go for uh, the standard type of virtual server, and therefore you will be using either TCP or UDP profile based on your requirement. If you are deploying the TCP based application, then you will be using TCP type of protocol profile, and if you are using UDP based application, then you will be using UDP type of protocol profile. Okay, so let's go back to the TCP now once again. And in previous class also we discussed about this TCP, right? So basically we should go for the TCP optimization. So there is a keyword called TCP optimization, right? And in regards with F5 Big IP, it is possible to perform TCP optimization by utilizing TCP profiles. So when it comes to the TCP profile, there will be two different profiles. One for your clients and other one for servers. However, you can keep both of them same. It is also possible, and in fact, by default, it is same. Like when you create any virtual server, like kind of standard virtual server, so you can see by default, like if you select a standard virtual server, so for client by default it has selected TCP, and for server it is saying that use client profile. So whatever you have applied for the client will be applicable for servers as well, right? So by default, in that it is in that way. However, as I mentioned before, that if you are creating a standard type of virtual server, we should always prefer to utilize like TCP WAN optimize for your clients and TCP lane optimize for your let me show you TCP lane optimize for your servers. So these are the recommended TCP profiles that we should prefer to use in our network. Now, if I go back to my profiles, right, once again to your protocol profile, and then you can go to the TCP profile, and then you can try to create one, right? So you can see that what all fields you can configure over here, right? So you can see you can change the ideally you will be utilizing this TCP profile to modify your keep alive interval, your ideal timeout, mainly ideal timeout, because to protect your network against DDoS attack, we can go ahead and we can reduce the ideal timeout, right? So by default, ideal timeout for TCP is 300 seconds, same as other devices like on firewalls also it is by default 300 seconds, right? So here we can modify that. We have that kind of luxury, right? Then we have kind of memory management for, I mean, we can reduce the buffer size or we can increase it based on our requirements, right? So for example, if your clients are using cell phones, for them, we should have higher buffer size onto Big IP. Because you know why? The real server and the Big IP, they have interconnectivity using 10 gig of link. You know, ideally the link between Big IP and the real servers will be of 10 gig. More than that, maybe 40 gig. But cell phone using 4G, 5G, right? And cell phone cannot the process data if that is received from the Big IP at the rate of at which Big IP received from the real server. You get my point? Therefore, if you know that your clients are using cell phones, then you should increase the buffer size, the proxy buffer size. So that depends basically on your situation, that which type of users, which type of devices your end users are utilizing. And therefore, you already have a protocol TCP profile called TCP mobile, F5 TCP mobile. You can see that proxy buffer is high now, right? 262.144, low is 196.608. So you can see here that even they have existing mobile, I mean, they have existing TCP profile for the mobile user, for the mobile users, right? So that's what I stated before, right? in fact, you should again reduce the ideal timeout, because as soon as your ideal timeout get expires, then TCP connection will also get closed automatically. So even for cell phone users, you should reduce your ideal timeout. So that's how you can make this configuration, right? So if I go back, and if you want to create a new customized TCP profile, go ahead and create one. The base profile, the parent profile, you have to select any one of the available one. Like for example, if you wanted to create a profile, a custom profile for your mobile users, right? So you know very well that they already have a TCP profile for the mobile user, right? So that's called F5 TCP mobile. Select that and then make the necessary changes over here. Exactly. And using iRules, you can using iRules, right? Using iRules, you can direct the traffic to the specific virtual server, because it will not be possible for us to say, hey, you are a you are a mobile user, go and hit this virtual server. Okay, you are a desktop user, go and hit this virtual server. We cannot say that, right? So better we use what? No, it's not mandatory. Even mobile can also use the browser, right? You get my point? That's why. That's why. So better we use the I rule, because using I rule we can specify it. Hey, if this is the mobile user, right? Because mobile user uses some different kind of browsers, or kind of, as you mentioned, like applications. So based on that, we can create I rule, and then we can say, hey, for this use this I rule. I mean, use this virtual server, and for this request use this pool. I mean, we can create separate pools. For mobile users, we can have separate pools, right? For normal users, we can have separate pools. So I mean, that depends, right? Um, and in fact, big IP DNS will play a vital role in that condition, because even you can tell your big IP DNS, hey, if the end user is using the cell phone, provide this IP address in the response of this website, so that it will hit that virtual server only. You get my point? And if the DNS request is coming from the desktop user, then we should provide this IP address in the DNS response, so that they will hit that specific virtual server only. So that's where even big IP DNS will also participate, or will provide you flexibility, right? Or will fix this problem for you. Make sense, sir? So therefore, you can keep scrolling it, and then you can also see, you can change the maximum segment size, the TTL values, right? Um, so you have all these things which you could modify for the TCP profile. Okay. So thereafter, let me go ahead and let me create a custom TCP profile for my lane user. So I would just say custom TCP profile for lane, right? Not for lane. Let's create it for WAN. So let's say I'm using TCP WAN optimize, right? And thereafter I can go ahead and I can customize some settings here, like pin wait 2 is just 100 seconds, and the idle timeout is like 100 seconds. I have just made it, and in place of 1800 seconds, let's make it like kind of 600 seconds, right? Thereafter, you could also change your buffer size, right? And even you could also define over here that how many maximum, like initial congestion window size, and you could also modify maximum segment retransmissions, maximum SYN retransmissions. You could also modify them if you were really needed to modify that. Go ahead and save that, right? So now I'll just go ahead and we'll save it. So finished. So we have created this custom TCP profile. You want to apply that? Go to your virtual server, and you know very well that we are using this 443 type of virtual server. Go to that virtual server and then go and change your TCP profile for client. So you created one test profile here, that is custom TCP WAN. Selected that, and for lane I can go ahead and I can use TCP lane optimized like this. Okay. Scroll down and update your virtual server. So that's how we can modify the behavior of the virtual server by changing the TCP profile. Remember, The behavior that you have modified is only for TCP, not for any other protocol, right? Because you applied only TCP profile. So don't expect that by applying the TCP profile, even the behavior of the virtual server will get modified for the HTTP based data. No, it's not going to be in that way. Okay. However, if you create HTTP type of profile, you attach it to your virtual server. So definitely the behavior of your virtual server towards your HTTP based data will also get modified. But at the moment, since you have applied only TCP profile, so the behavior of your big IP will get changed only for the TCP, only for TCP protocol. Okay, not for any other application or any other. Of course, you have done like TCP optimization using this profile. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, that HTTP is depending over TCP. Yeah. So there is a dependency, right? Hardcore dependency. If you don't use TCP like you are using UDP with HTTPS, of course, your application is not going to work. So that's something that we should always take care of, right? Thereafter, so that's about the TCP profile. And UDP, I think we discussed it before in previous class also, that how does UDP profile looks like. So we have already discussed about that. Okay. So I'm not going to discuss anything more about the UDP profile at the moment, right? Because it will be depending upon the type of application that you are deploying. If your application uses TCP, then of course you will use TCP profile. If your application uses UDP, then you will have to select UDP profile at layer 4. Okay. Fine. Thereafter, like we have discussed about the protocol profiles now. Now let's talk about the SSL profile. As I said before, that SSL, I mean, the best purpose or the best uses of SSL profile is to perform SSL offloading, right? And that's what we have been doing from long time, right? Like since long now, like from last 3 weekends, we are using SSL offloading, right? So what we have done, we are using, I mean, we are securing our connection between client and big IP using SSL profile, right? And the encryption and decryption is performed by the big IP only. And we have uploaded this operation from our real servers by doing SSL offloading. And that's why, you know, like for that purpose, you go to profiles and then create SSL profile. So now you have 2 different options available for creating SSL profile. One, you can create SSL profile for your clients. Other, you can create your SSL profile for your real servers, right? So as I said, there is no need. In most cases, you will never ever require to have secure connection between big IP and the real server. You would not require that. However, if you are a bank, right? If you are a bank, definitely you will have to secure your data between big IP and the real servers as well. That's where it is recommended to have end-to-end SSL encryption between client and the real servers, right? However, decryption will be needed by the big IP, right? Since you are doing you have enabled SSL inspection, maybe you are doing you have enabled HTTP profile, right? Because if you do not perform SSL decryption, then there is no uses or there is no advantage of enabling HTTP profile. Because if SSL has already encrypted your data and you are not doing SSL decryption, then your big IP will not be able to inspect your HTTP based data, right? So there will not be any advantage of enabling HTTP profile. So in case if you know that HTTP profile is mandatory for you, make sure that you have SSL decryption enabled on your big IP. And for that purpose, we will be using SSL profile only for the client, not for the server, so that we can perform SSL offloading. Does that make sense to all of you? Perfect. Whenever it comes to the SSL, right, we should be aware that how SSL works basically. And nowadays, basically, we are using TLS, transport layer security, right? We do not use SSL. We use what? TLS. So when you send a SSL request, or you know, like when you are sending SSL hello packet first time to your web server, so basically it will be sent to your big IP, right? And you will send that SSL hello packet with your own parameters that you do support, right? And you will send that SSL hello to your big IP. Big IP will respond back with its SSL hello along with its certificate. Like big IP will also represent its certificate to you, right? And thereafter, you know, the client is going to verify that certificate, whether the certificate is valid or not, right? Because for web pages, we will always use the SSL, you know, we will always use the SSL for the encryption purposes or for authentication purposes. And within SSL, we are not going to use like kind of IPsec and the pre-shared key. No, we will be using what? Certificate authority, or we will be using digital certificate for the authentication purposes, right? So that's where you can create that. So whenever you are planning to create SSL profile, the first requirement would be to have SSL certificate. To have what? SSL certificate. That's mandatory. If you do not have any SSL certificate, don't go for SSL profile. You cannot create that without having SSL certificate. Does that make sense to all of you? All right, guys. What I will do, I'll give you a break of like 4 to 5 minutes now, right? And thereafter, I'll continue with this SSL profile, right? So I have some water and get refreshed yourself. I'll mute myself, right? And we'll continue in next couple of minutes. Hey guys, I'm back. Shall we continue now? Arjun, Praveen, are you all available now? Okay, perfect. So guys, now let's talk about the SSL profile, right? So as I said, like first we have to have a certificate, SSL certificate, then only we will be able to utilize it, right? So for that purpose, now you have two different options available. You know very well that we can get like kind of certificate from the public CAs or from the private CA. Private CA is something like maybe self-sign certificate, or maybe we can configure our internal CA like using Microsoft CA server, right? So we can configure internal CA server, or we can get certificates from the public CA. So when I talk about the public CAs, those are like Google, Microsoft, right? Facebook, AWS, right? So those, I mean, all these providers are public CA providers. Symantec, right, is one of the giant when it comes to the um, public CAs, right? So you should be aware about that root certificate, the subordinate certificate, and thereafter the client certificate, right? So there mainly you would have two, three different types of certificates available. So you should understand those terminologies, right? So if I talk about the PKI, PKI is what? Public key infrastructure, right? Public private key infrastructure, right? So basically within that infrastructure you would have a CA server, right? CA server will generate a root certificate as well as the client certificate, right? So that root certificate must be available onto your web server as well as on the client machine, because if client machine doesn't have the root certificate, then you would have this kind of error message like here you can see connection is not secure. You know why? We have a certificate but it's not a valid certificate because its root certificate is not available in my browser's database, right? So it will always display you like cross kind of thing, right? Red cross, right? Because that certificate is not a valid certificate for my machine, right? So that's why it is always recommended to have the certificate from the public CAs, like go and purchase certificate from Symantec, right? And you know very well that Symantec is already having root certificate installed on all browsers, whether it's Google Chrome, the Firefox, maybe it's Internet Explorer, right? So every browser having Symantec's root certificate available and subordinate certificates available, right, in their databases. And in case if there is a change, right? So Symantec is pushing, is updating the database of these browsers automatically whenever your machine gets connected to a internet, right? So it is always recommended to purchase a certificate from public CA. If not, okay, perfect, use private CA, then also make sure that root certificate is being pushed to all client machines dynamically using maybe GPO. You can utilize GPO. GPO is like group policies, right? So you can use group policy, and using group policy, you can push your root certificate to each and every individual machine using Active Directory, right? That is also possible, and that is something that's where the system engineer will came into the picture, right, for you. So you will just provide that certificate to them, and then they will push that to all end user machines. Okay. Thereafter, um, the certificate, like if you have a certificate, right? Let's say you have purchased a certificate from the public CA. Thereafter, you will go to. Let me show you that how you can upload that certificate right over your big IP. Just a moment, please. It's taking time again. Okay, it has been slowed down again. Oh my god. Tomorrow, hmm, I'll see what can be done with this. Yes. It's creating problem. I don't know how. Then I'll restart my laptop as well because it's not been restarted since long time. So maybe that's the issue. me see how much resources I have allocated to it. For processor, 8 GB, that is more than sufficient. I don't know why the issues are coming again and again. All right. So I'm logged in again. So if you have a certificate available, go to System tab. Under System tab, then you have a certificate management. From certificate management, you have two different options available. One is traffic certificate management, other one is device certificate management, right? So you don't have to do anything this time for device certificate management, because the device certificate will be used to have the access of your device using HTTPS and of course SSH, right? But this time, since you are playing with the traffic, right, you want to perform SSL decryption for the traffic received by the virtual server onto this big IP, right? So for SSL decryption, right, you must have a traffic certificate. So for that, you can see now traffic certificate and then SSL certificate list. And over here, you can upload your SSL certificate if you have available, right? So first you must have a SSL certificate, and thereafter you will be able, or you will be uploading that certificate over here, right? So you can see that there is an option of uploading certificate as well, right? You can see import, right? So you can import a certificate over here. You can see import type. So it's a, let's say, certificate. So it's a new certificate, right? It's a new certificate, and thereafter you can see, I mean, this certificate source as well. You can upload that file or maybe paste text. So text, you can also paste the text, because you can also open up your certificate in text file. Remember, I hope that you have seen it before, that your certificates can be opened up in text format. So you can copy paste your text format, or maybe you can upload the certificate file directly over here, just like this. So for example, if I have a certificate here, I must be having some certificates over here. I'll just give you an example, right? Okay. So let's say I had this certificate. So that's how you would upload this certificate over here, right? So import, and that's how you're gonna upload this certificate onto this device. So it's saying new certificate, let's say test cert, right? And then import it. This is how you're gonna upload your certificate here on this machine. So like you had this test certificate now, right? So you can see organization and like expiration, the RSA certificate, like that. So that's how you can have a certificate available, right, onto your machine. And this is how you will be uploading your device certificate. If you, I mean, not device certificate, this is a traffic certificate, but this is the way of uploading your certificate onto your big IP. Okay. Also, you can create one, right? Like you can ask to create a certificate for you from a certificate authority itself. So your common name, right? And so it will generate a CSR from here, right? It will generate a CSR from here, and thereafter you will be getting a certificate. So if you have a CA server, right? Thereafter, I mean, you will be using the, you will be creating the certificate certificate signing request, and you will be providing this CSR to your CA provider, to your CA certificate authority, and based on that, your certificate will be generated by your CA server. So it's totally up to you, but ultimately we must have a certificate available onto this portal over here. Thereafter, like we already created a self-signed certificate to perform this testing. Thereafter, you go back to your local traffic, go to your profiles and then SSL profile. Let's say I wanted to create SSL profile for the client. Go ahead and create that. So you can provide some name, test2 SSL profile, like this. The parent profile, I'll keep it client SSL, and then I can change the certificate over here if I want to change that, right? So default certificate is there, test SSL certificate is also there, right? So test SSL certificate, remember that we created this test cert, right? Now we do not have the key for this test cert, because we should also have the keys for this test cert, which I do not have, right? So I'll not be using that. So I'll be using just like test SSL certificate, which is my self-signed certificate. Go ahead and add that. Thereafter, you have some other options as well, right? Like you can go to advanced, like configuration, right? So configuration, by default, it is selected as basic. So it will display you only basic options. If you want to see the advanced option, you can also select the advanced. So that under any profile, you would have these two options available, basic and advanced. So if basic is selected, only basic options will be displayed. If you want to see advanced options, then you will have to select the advanced by your own. Now, if you look at here, ciphers is very important, right? Sometimes you have to change your ciphers using your SSL profile itself. So cipher suite, I hope that you are already aware with the cipher suite. You have heard about the cipher suite in past as well. Right? So cipher suite will tell you what encryption protocol, what hashing protocol it will be using, right? So by default, it will use the default one. But you can also use, like you have certain different types of cipher suites available, and accordingly you can utilize them. So let me just show you the cipher suite. Let me just go through this page. Here you go. Right? The cipher string defined in the following table, right? So if you apply this cipher, which means it includes this list, which is defined below over here, right? So if you apply this one, then it will have all these options available, right? So thereafter, you can also see that how you can modify that using your SSL profile. So under SSL profile, go to advanced and then ciphers, and then you can have them defined like this. So default, and thereafter you could see like this, like default, you could apply this following, you know, like this. So by default, it's default there, right? But you can change it in this way. But let's say you wanted to support only TLS 1.2, fine. Go ahead and copy paste like this under your profile, like this. So it will support only TLS version 1 and version 2 only. Similarly, you can have your profile in this way. For example, default, and I don't want to use AES 128 sharp. I don't want to use AES 128 cipher. I want to block that, right? So I could say default, and I want to block. Block is like exclamation, and then, you know, like that. And if you want to block AES, fine. Go ahead and block it. If you want to block 3 dash, go ahead and block that. So that's how you could change the cipher suite available onto your big IP using profile. This is also doable using CLI, right? You can also change the cipher suite using CLI. That is also possible. But this is how you would change it using profile itself, right? So let's go back to this profile. So that's where you could change your cipher suite. Thereafter, you have cache size, cache timeout for SSL connection. The max renegotiation is 5, right? So that's what you could change that. And I mean, that's that piece. And client certificate, I'm going to ignore that because I don't want to authenticate client. Only client will authenticate the server, right? So that's what basically happens. and thereafter you will go ahead and you will change. I mean, you will save it. So you can finish this up. So that's how you would create the SSL client profile. In similar way, if needed, you can also change it. I mean, you can also create SSL profile for the server as well, right? Thereafter, you will go back to your virtual server, and you know very well that how to apply SSL profile onto a virtual server, because this is something that we have been doing, couple of times till now. So you can see under SSL profile client, you can call your SSL profile. So if you are calling SSL profile only for the client, which means you are using SSL offloading, right? You are not doing end-to-end encryption. And if you call like server SSL over here, which means you will start using SSL for server-side connections as well. However, currently this connection will not get established because we are not using SSL onto my server end. Right? So that's how you can create the SSL profile and you can get it to apply your virtual server. Thereafter, let's talk about the service profile now, right? So we will be talking about the services profile now, right? So when it comes to the services profile, that is application layer oriented profile, right? Or application oriented profile. The services profiles are also known as application oriented profile, and you can see all are the application layer protocols in front of it. You can see that. You will never ever see any transport layer protocol in front of services, right? So under services, you can see all of the protocols are application layer protocol, whether it is FTP, HTTP, DNS, DSCP, SIP, SMTP, right? HTTP version 2, like that. So all of them are application layer protocols, and you can create the profile for them. Okay, so ideally, when are you going, I mean, in which situation you will be using these profiles, these services profiles? So for example, if you want to modify the behavior of your virtual server in regards with HTTP, right? So for example, you want to have some different behavior from your big IP towards your HTTP based data. You will have to go ahead and you will have to create the HTTP type of service profile. Okay. You want your big IP to inspect your data at layer 7 for HTTP, you have to have HTTP profile in place, right? You want your big IP to support, you want your virtual server to support for FTP, you have to have a FTP profile in place, right? You want your virtual server to be support HTTP version 2, you have to have HTTP version 2 profile in place onto your virtual server, right? If you want your virtual server to be to perform HTTP compression, like that, then HTTP compression type of profile must be in place, right? You want web acceleration like caching, right, of your HTTP data, web content, right? Then you must have like kind of HTTP, like web acceleration type of profile. Okay, so that's what we are going to cover now, right? So under services profile, so first let's talk about the HTTP profile. Okay, select HTTP, and under HTTP go to HTTP. Under services go to HTTP profile. So you know very well that HTTP profile will enforce your big IP to perform HTTP inspection, because if you do not apply HTTP profile to your big IP, to your virtual server, then your virtual server will never ever inspect your HTTP based data. Any questions, sir? Tell me if you have any questions around this. So if you really wanna your big IP to perform inspection for HTTP data, like ideally you do DSCP snooping, right, onto your switches. So once you enable DSCP snooping on your switches, then your switch will start inspecting the DSCP packets. Same goes with dynamic ARP inspection, right? Similarly over here, if you want your virtual server to inspect HTTP based data, like you want to perform some URL redirection. If you want to say, hey, if somebody is hitting www.facebook.com, then it should be redirected to blogpage.com. So that's something that you will have to inspect your data at layer 7. Then only you will be able to understand that, hey, this HTTP request was for facebook.com, right? So in that condition, it will be mandatory for you to enable HTTP inspection onto your big IP, and that can be done using HTTP profile only. So one HTTP profile is by default there. If you want to create a custom profile, you go ahead, create one, right? And then, by default, your proxy is like reverse proxy over here, right? So parent profile is HTTP, provide some name, test HTTP profile like this, right, guys? And thereafter, you can click on custom so that you can modify the options as needed. So fallback host is really important. Fallback host is really important. What if entire pool went down? What if entire pool went down? You can go ahead and you can select the fallback host, right? So if you said like www.fallbackhost.com, which is having kind of sorry page, hey, sorry, at the moment all services are down, and we really regret for our, like that. So you can have kind of sorry page, and then you can provide the address to reach that sorry page over here, so that at least your end user knows, okay, company is not shut down, which means some maintenance is going on. Because if you are trying to website of any organization, and that website is not accessible, right? Let's see, it's not displaying anything. It looks like, okay, company is shut down now, right? So it gives really a wrong message to our end customer, right? So better we regret our, we should regret to our customer that, hey, we are really sorry for this inconvenience occurred to you, and we will, or we are trying to restore our services as soon as possible, right? So like that. So you must define this fallback host. You can also define fallback on some error codes as well, right? Like you are getting some error code coming from the real server, right? Ideally, if your error code is starting with 5, which means it's a server side problem, right? Then you should perform the fallback for those error codes. So you can define your error code. So if your server is providing some response, and response is containing some response code, and that's containing some error code, then it should perform fallback. Okay. Else it will perform fallback only and only if entire pool went down. Okay. Thereafter, we have so many things over here. So many things, right? Like XFF, really important, sir. XFF. You know what happens if you have enabled a SNAT? You have enabled a SNAT, right? Let me show you something here. Let me go back to my virtual servers. Let me see if SNAT is enabled for it. Let me enable the auto map, right? So SNAT, it's auto map, fine. Update. Thereafter, let me go back to my test machine. Okay, perfect. Now I can perform some capture, maybe on router 1. And then I can go back to my client machine. I'll go back to my client machine now. And from client machine, I'm going to hit my LTM. Give it a moment, because today, maybe it's my laptop's issue. Performance is not much better. Let me make a request from my client machine. Wait for some time, sir. Really ridiculous. Okay. Okay, let me hit this website now. Wow, from server 1. Now let me go back. So if you look at this HTTP request message, right guys? If you look at this HTTP request message, let me stop it. Right guys? So request AP head. Where is get? Here we go. If you look at this get message, so IP address containing source IP addresses, because automatic is enabled, right? So it's containing private IP. It's not really having the client actual IP address, right? And even if you look at the HTTP, it is also not containing your client's information. Like what is the actual client IP address? Isn't it? Guys, do you understand that? So it's not containing the client IP address. Now, if you are having threat analysis configured onto your real servers, some software is installed and doing threat analysis. If you are not really aware that from where which client is coming in, you cannot really identify that from where threat was actually generated. If you are doing some sort of monitoring, like from which region, from which country, how many users tried to have access of our website onto your real server, you cannot do that, right? So in that condition, you have this HTTP profile and you can edit it and then you can apply accordingly. So you go to service profile, HTTP profile, create one, like test HTTP profile, right? And thereafter, go ahead, make it custom, enable XFF. By default disabled, I have enabled it. You know, now as soon as you enabled XFF and thereafter you go back to your virtual server, this is 443 virtual server, which is, which is listening over port 443. Edit that virtual server and apply that HTTP profile that I have just created. So if you scroll down, scroll up, then HTTP profile, make it test HTTP profile. I've changed it to test HTTP profile, update your virtual server. Now you would see that HTTP header itself will contain the client's actual IP address. Now you would see that. Just a moment, quit without saving, go back, stop, capture, start capture, and then start your Wireshark, and thereafter you go back to your end user machine and refresh your browser. So it has accessed this website from server 2, right? So, okay, every time it is going to server 2, maybe it's some sort of persistence is enabled. I'll have to see that. Or maybe I can start doing capture over server 2 as well. Let me stop it. Stop it. Or maybe I can start for next one. Okay, it's been started. Cool. Let's go back to the end user machine. Refresh it, which is good. We do have access to it. Stop it. Filter for HTTP. Look for the get message. Get. Here you go. Open this get message. So IP address is still containing its source IP address as a private IP address. This is fine. But now if you look at the get message itself, it must have XFF header. And XFF will have the actual client IP address. And you can see that it is containing, that client actual IP address, original IP address. So if you have an application installed onto your real web servers, and those web servers are enough capable to understand XFF within HTTP header, so they can easily identify that actually originally this request came from this public IP address. Any questions, sir, around this? So I hope that now HTTP profile is making sense to all of you, that why it is mandatory, why is it needed, right? So even if you are creating an I rule and you are trying to perform some redirection using I rule, again, HTTP profile is mandatory for the virtual server to be attached, right? If you don't attach the HTTP type of HTTP profile to your virtual server, therefore you will not be able, thereafter you will not be able to attach the I rule which you created in the perspective of layer 7. Like, hey, if GET is coming for this host name, it should discard it. Your big IP will not be able to perform inspection for HTTP packets at layer 7, right? If you do not attach HTTP profile. So there are so many things that you can perform using HTTP profile. This is what we did, right? So if I go back to the services and then HTTP profile, you can see that we changed these all options, and these all options are available over here, right? So non-methods, like by default, it is supporting all of the methods, HTTP methods. If you know very well that, hey, I'm going to use GET, I'm going to use head, I'm going to use connect, that's it, nothing more, then I should allow only those methods only. If I am already aware that, okay, I'll be using those methods only, then I should allow only I should allow those methods only, no additional method. No additional method should be allowed. Okay. Okay, guys. So that's that piece. And pipelining is also there. Truncated redirection is also disabled by default, but you can see that what's the meaning of all those options. So you can go to help, and then you can see here truncated. Where is that? Enforcement. And then allow truncated redirect. So specify the pass-through behavior when a redirect lacking the trailing, carriage, return, and line feed pair at the end of the header is passed. The default is disabled, which will silently drop the invalid HTTP packet. Right. So that's how you can read the definition of all these options available under help if needed. Right, guys? And except XFF, if XFF header is by default coming in, maybe a client was having a forward proxy like Bluecott, Symantec Bluecott, or maybe Cisco's IronPort, right? So they can also enable XFF. So which means that even your virtual server itself will receive a GET message coming from the proxy with XFF header, right? So you should enable, or maybe it's up to you if you want to accept. If you want to accept the XFF, so if you want to accept the XFF, you will have to check mark it. By default, it's disabled, right? That's that piece, boss. So you have so many things over here to configure within the HTTP profile, but I have given you idea how can you leverage the HTTP profile, or maybe TCP profile, or maybe UDP profile here to fix your problems. Now I'll teach you. Yeah, go ahead. Whether client is what? Again, you would require I rule to identify that, I believe so. However, the default functionality is not there. And it's not needed actually for a big IP to know about. You know why? Because I'm going to receive the request, and my virtual server will process that traffic accordingly. That's it. Right? So guys, I'm okay with HTTP profile now. I'm done with HTTP profile. The next profile I'm going to continue with is HTTP compression. If you really want to perform HTTP compression, then make sure that HTTP profile is attached to your virtual server. So for example, if you go to the virtual server and you want to enable HTTP compression, so if you go to acceleration, then you have this option available. By default, it's not there, right? But this option is available. You know why? Because HTTP profile is already there. If you do not apply HTTP profile, let's say you said none, now you can even not enable, you cannot enable HTTP compression, HTTP acceleration, HTTP version 2 profile, nothing. So if you want to enable HTTP compression, web acceleration, make sure that HTTP profile is already in place. Okay. So let me go back and HTTP profile, test HTTP profile. Let me scroll down and then you can also go ahead and create the HTTP compression profile. So let me go back to the profile, services, thereafter HTTP compression profile, create one like test HTTP compression profile, right? So parent is compression, then go and click on custom. Then you can see that by default it is going to perform compression for all URLs .asterisk, which means all. If you don't want to perform HTTP compression for a specific URL, type that URL, like for example www.facebook or maybe www.imedita.com. I don't want to perform any compression for this website. Go ahead and click on exclude. Does that make sense to you? So MyBigIP will not perform HTTP compression, right, for this particular URL. I have excluded that. Okay, which type of content will be compressed by MyBigIP is text data and XML and JavaScript only. If you have some other type of data, you want to compress that, go ahead, type here, and then either include that or exclude that. You get my point? So that is also doable. Preferred method, by default, it will use ggzip. You can also have dflat. The content length, minimum content length that it will be compressing is 1024, 1 MB. Compression buffer size is 4 MB. KB, I'm sorry, 4 KB. And then compression level is by default 1. You can make it 9 as well, most compression. But it will really degrade the performance of your box. Really degrade. Because this is not something that you are, I mean, you can utilize as a, what should I call, Riverbed. Because for this type of work, you have Riverbed solution in place, right? So use them. So CPU saver and everything, like, so that's how you can create HTTP compression profile. Go ahead, finish it, and then exactly like BigIP will compress first and then we'll send it to the client, and client will decompress that. That is also fine. That is also fine. That's something that coder will do. But BigIP can also perform that kind of compression. Like if your file is of 1 MB, it can reduce like kind of 100 KB or maybe 50 KB like that. Okay. So overall, the bandwidth consumption will be less. So that's how you can perform the HTTP compression, right? So go back to virtual server, added that. You have already applied the HTTP profile. Now go to acceleration, and then HTTP compression was like test HTTP compression profile, update it. Now caching is also possible. Like once a user has accessed a website, thereafter BigIP can cache that data. Next time, if next user is coming in and trying to access the same content, then BigIP can respond back on the behalf of the real server. So it will also improve the performance, right? So that's why these all features are coming under acceleration. So again, go back profiles, services, and then web acceleration, right? And you already have a web acceleration profile over here. So you can see which all URLs will be cached. The size you can define, cache size, URI include, you can include something, exclude something, right? Like that. So that's what you can do using web acceleration. So it will be performing caching over here. So remember that in AWS, in cloud, They have a solution called Cloudflare or something like that. I mean, they have cache servers, right? Across the world. You can utilize those services. So same here, you can also utilize your big IP as a cache server. And then finally, you will have to apply it to your virtual server. So let's say my virtual server is the first one. But again, to enable this profile, make sure that HTTP profile is already in place, right? So web acceleration, like this. You want to configure your big IP to support for HTTP version 2. Go ahead and create that profile first, service profile, and thereafter enable that onto your virtual server. Now, by default, your big IP does not allow for FTP data by default. How? Let me show you. You know very well that I have two servers, two FTP servers. Those IP addresses are 20.70 and 20.80. And this time I'll be using my FTP server as PC1 and PC2. Let me turn on PC2 as well. And as a client machine, I'll be using my own. So let me shut down this machine first, and I'll have to change some settings over here, right? So it must be behind VMNet 3. Fine. So shut down, that is fine. Change virtual machine settings, and it should be behind VMNet 3. This is also behind VMNet. PC2 is also behind. So PC1 and PC2, I'll be utilizing them as FTP servers. I'm sorry. Okay, is it stopped? Okay. All right, it's shared again. So guys, I'm gonna shut down these servers, not needed, but let's keep them up. But I have two FTP servers. So one is this Windows PC1 that I will utilize as FTP server. So the IP address of this should be 20.70, and on PC2 it should be 20.80. So on PC2, let me log in. PC1 also, I'll get logged in. I'll have to change the IP address. On PC2, the IP address should be 20.80 and the default gateway should be 20.1, which is my big IP's internal interface IP. So instead of using these routers, I'll be using my Windows machines as FTP server. Okay. Just a moment. Looks like I have to set idle PC because utilization is quite high. Still not reducing. Okay, all right, no problem. So big IP PC1, I have to assign IP address. That's 20.70. And default gateway would remain 20.1. EC2 should have that IP address only. 20.80. That's fine. 20.1 is default gateway. So now onto my big IP now, I can go ahead and I can add nodes. Create TP server 1 IP address 20.70. Finished. Right, thereafter go ahead, create a pool for FTP servers. You already have them, but I'll have to remove these members. These are not actual members actually. So now add from node list 20.70 and 80. So I have two pool members over here. So you can see both of members are up and running. And the default monitor that I'm using here is Gateway ICMP. So that's good. I have a pool for FTP servers. And let me go back to my FTP servers now. Let me start here the FTP services. You can see it's up, and there is a on FTP server 1 there is a text file server 1. On FTP server 2 there is a text file of server 2, right? Now I'll have to use my machine, my end user machine here, right, as a client machine that I'll be using later. But first I'll create a virtual server. So if I go back to virtual server, I'll have to create a virtual server for FTP. So create one. FTP virtual server. Source any. Destination maybe Fighter 5 itself. I will listening over FTP. Scroll down. Maybe AutoMap is enabled. It's up to you. Pool is the FTP server pool. Finish. So virtual server is up and running now, right? And thereafter, this is my topology. So I'm sitting here somewhere. So 10.1 is going to be my default gateway on my local client machine. However, I'll have to add that route using CLI because I cannot set default gateway. Because if I set multiple default gateway, I lose my internet connectivity. So route add for 5.5.5, mask, and then gateway would be 192.168.10.1. So ping 5.5.5. Just a moment. 5. This is good. And thereafter, let me try to access from my browser if I am able to access the FTP servers. So FTP 5.5.5. Here we go. Site cannot be reached. Refuse to connect. Right? And there is a reason behind that. You know why? Because my big IP is configured with the virtual server. This is fine. But there is no FTP profile attached to it. And I told you earlier that if FTP profile is not attached to your virtual server, it will not work. Right? It will not work. So any questions till now? So first we will have to go back to the profiles, and then service profile. Under service profile, you should have the FTP, and then create one FTP profile. So like test FTP profile. If it's up to you if you want to customize something here, like if you want to enable FTPS mode, you can allow that. Right? Allow active mode is by default enabled. You can also disable it because passive is by default allowed, right? So even active mode is also enabled. You can uncheck it if you don't want to allow active mode. Let's say you want to allow only passive mode. So it's up to you. Finish it. You created FTP type of profile. Go back to your virtual server, FTP virtual server. Under HTTP profile, there should be like FTP profile. FTP. Now you cannot call HTTP profile. You know why? Because FTP and HTTP profiles cannot coexist. Right? So FTP profile is there now, test FTP profile. Scroll down, update your virtual server settings, and thereafter go ahead and try to access the same FTP server. Now you should be able to access that. See? You get that? Flash player was there and server 1, which means that we accessed through server 1. Right? Let me close it and let me start it again. FTP. Server 2. Right, guys? And even I can download this data. So for example, I want to download it. So install Flash Player. I clicked on it. It will start downloading it from the real FTP server now. It's working perfectly, right? So we can save this file now. That's how you can configure, like FTP virtual, FTP type of virtual server.